Welcome back to our Liberty Bible course of money, more Pacific, faith, promise giving, part something. I don't know how much we can get into it. You need to go back and find the videos that we've done. As I've always said, I love these books. I love this place. I'll give you the name and address and the web page at the end of this video. But I love this book. It says this study is written to be used with the King James Version of the Bible. Otherwise, your answers are going to be incorrect. Now, we've been taken apart. We've been studying faith, promise, giving. We've looked at many, many things. And we left off with misapplication. And we started something new last week with misleading. And we left off with misleading statement number 1. Saying that faith, promise, offering is not a pledge. Now, we are quoting, this book is quoting the books, and the scriptures. Taking their statements and matching them up with the King James Bible that you can open up and you can read along with us. If you're unable to keep up with us, write it down, go replay this, rewind, fast forward, whatever you need to do, and show yourself, don't believe me, I can lie to you, what the scriptures say. Go to the websites and point out what is being said. Don't just believe because a guy says. Check them out when in doubt. The people will lie to you. Misleading statement number 2, as we pick up this week. Saying that you are not held responsible for the amount that you set as your faith promise offering. I'll say that again. Saying that you are not held responsible for the amount that you set as your faith promise offering. Well, I got the card. I don't need to put my name. I'm going to give $10 every month. I want God to give me $10 more every month for me to give $10 a month. That's what you need to go back and watch and listen about this faith promise. I'm going to give what I don't have, that I expect God to give me what I don't have, to give what I don't have yet. Note, their whole basis for saying that a pledge is unscriptural is because they say it is binding upon you. Someone or some organization could come after you to collect it. Now, a pledge, let me tell you, a pledge by law. Wherever you are, church, telethon, whatever, you put your name on a pledge, they can take you to a judge and make you pay whatever pledge you pledged. Even if you ain't got the pledge. That is the law. Can I say it? Or shall I shut up? You want me to shut up? I pledge allegiance to the flag of a nation that lets sodomites get married, where God is not welcome in the schools, and the Bible is not loud in the courtroom. For liberty, except for I can't say the N-word. And justice only if you let Trayvon's guy get the death penalty, or whatever his name is. One nation, but 50 states. One nation under small G-O-D. Because it ain't God of the Bible. Now some of you just got angry. Some of you Bible-believing Christians, you want to spit me out. But a pledge, when you make a pledge, you are held liable. And what if under that flag they want you to denounce Jesus Christ as your God? I'm just telling you. Get back to the study. Here is what Oswald, O-S-W-A-L-D, J. Smith, S-M-I-T-H. I want to make sure you get this right. Said, I quote, "A pledge offering is between you and a church, between you and a missionary society, and someday the deacons may come along and try to collect it, or you may receive a letter asking for it. In other words, you can be held responsible for a pledge offering, period," end of quote. He goes on to say, I quote, "A faith promise offering, on the other hand, is between you and God. No one will ever ask you for it. No official will ever call on you to collect it. No one will ever send you a letter reminding you of it. It is a promise made by you to God and to God alone, period," end of quote. So what he says, there's two things. A pledge, you can be called upon by person, by letter, by whatever. U-O-O-O. A faith promise is, it's between you and God. No one will call you on it. As a Christian, I'd like you to turn to Proverbs 11, verse 3 while we're doing this. As a Christian, when you make a commitment, you should keep your word, whether anyone comes asking for it or not. And we're in a very serious doctrine now. This ain't no playing around. There's no joking. What Mr. Smith said is, I telling God I'm going to do something. It's between God and me. And no one knows but God and me. Proverbs 11:3. The integrity. How many Americans out there know what the word integrity means? Of the upright shall guide them, but the perverseness of transgressors shall destroy them. Integrity, now this is between God and me about this faith promise. Never mind anybody else. Integrity is God, I'm going to keep my word for you no matter who knows what I say, what I don't say. Let's take faith promising as a guy's in a foxhole, he's got a gun, he's got bullets and ammo flying over his head, and no one knows around, but he says, God, if you get me out of this, I'll go back to church like my mama wants me to be, and Lord, I'll be that great Christian that you want me to be, you just get me out of here, and no one's heard him. He just made a promise offering, a faith promise offering. Yet, how many foxhole faith promise offerings have people made to God that they did not keep? Imagine if God would call every person who's been in battle to their promise that they made to God if he were to get them out of it. It's like the story, here's this guy, he's up on the roof, he's fixing the roof, and he starts to fall. And as he's falling, the ground's coming, he's coming to the edge, the ground's coming up, and he's falling, he's calling upon God, God help me, God help me, God help me, God I'm going to fall down, God come on help me, if you do this, all I'll do, Lord get me to stop me somehow. And at the very edge, his trousers are caught on a nail, preventing him from falling, And he turns to God and says, God, never mind. Took care of myself, thank you. And that's what a lot of faith promise is. God, thank you. I took care of it myself. Proverbs 19:1. Better is the poor that walketh in his integrity than he that is perverse in his lips and is a fool. If there's one thing the Bible does not want you to be, the Bible does not want you to be a fool. As we're coming to the mid part of Nehemiah and coming to the book of Esther, we'll be coming to the book of Proverbs. That will be an interesting study for you to follow along with us as a family, because guess what? Proverbs does not want you to be a fool. As we're studying right now, Proverbs here, integrity. The opposite of integrity is a fool. You get my drift? Proverbs 20, verse 7. The just man walketh in his integrity. His children are blessed after him. Now we're talking about a pledge and we're talking about a promise. We're talking about a pledge where a church or people can come after you. We're talking about a promise where it's just between you and God. Did you just get what I just said? If you make a pledge, man will come after you and make you do what you said you will do. But if it's between you and God, you don't have to do it. God is love. God will understand if you can't do it. Cocky poo-poo. That's the kind of thing you don't carry a Bible to those meetings. You carry toilet paper. What kind of reason is it to say that you should not make a commitment to certain ones, people, man, because they may come after you to collect, but that it's okay to make commitments to others because they will not come after you? This certainly is not Bible reasoning. And he makes it more so because in his logic, in his thinking, it's you and God. Fear man that can come after you, but don't fear God, the promise that you make to him. So what do you got in America today amongst Christians? When you stand up there with that woman or that man that you want as to be husband and wife, and you stand there before the preacher and you're making oath to God, well, we can just end it, that all, boom, who cares? After all, we said it to God. We didn't really. We promised each other. It's not called a, it's not called a pledge. We didn't pledge. We vowed. No one's going to come after us. You got to put it in another light. See what this teaching is? We're not going to be held accountable for what we say to God and what we perform before God, but before men we'll be held accountable. So man has more authority than God does. You're to watch what you say before God rather than, watch what you say before man rather than watch what you say before God. I don't know how many. No, I'm not going to use because I'm not going to say it. It's an unworthy thing to be quoting from. The whole case for saying that you are not held responsible for what you commit to giving as a faith promise offering is now seen to be a very misleading statement. We now pick up where Oswald J. Smith's last statement and show you how the end the fine print, shows the opposite to be true. I quote, "It is a promise made by you to God, and to God alone. If you are unable to pay it, all you have to do is to tell God. Give him your excuse, and if he accepts it, you are free, period, end of quote." I quoted Oswald J. Smith, according to Liberty Bible Course Booklet, page number 15. Money Part 2, Series Practical Christian Living, book number 5. If God accepts your excuse, you are free. I say that with a question mark. Why do you need an excuse at all if there is nothing binding about the faith promise offering? Binding is when you're shackled, you're tied, you've been handcuffed. Ball and chain. If God accepts your excuse, you are free, question mark again. Free from what? How can there be a penalty for not fulfilling the commitment if there was nothing binding about it? That's like you're married. You go in the refrigerator, you grab something, you eat it or drink it. A couple hours later, your wife comes and says, "Well, where was this thing? Did you see it?" "Well, I ate it or drank it." "I'm sorry, I didn't know." "Well, that's okay. Well, next time you should ask." But then 2 days later, you're forgiven. But your wife comes up to me, "I demand that you give that to me right now." I was like, "Well, I said I was sorry. I didn't know. It wasn't binding. It wasn't. But I want it." What you are seeing now is double talk and deceit, plain and simple. Is a Christian supposed to double talk? Is deceit in God's vocabulary? Does God lie? One thing is pushed and pushed. I quote, "Commit to giving a faith promise offering because you are not held liable if you cannot pay," end of quote. But at the very end, the fine print says a totally different thing. Remember what Oswald J. Smith said? I quote again, "You can be held responsible for a pledge offering," end of quote. Quote, "A faith promise offering, on the other hand, is between you and God. No one will ever ask you for it, period," quote, end. Is God in the category of being no one? He just called God no one. We should just stop right now and clear. That's it. Isn't that enough? Didn't that get you angry? Doesn't that should get you angry enough when, listen, even a worldly man, an unsaved person uses Jesus Christ as a cuss to get you angry that they, I know they don't use better, but they're using your Savior's name in vain. And here's a guy who professes to be a Christian. I don't know, it's not my job. But he turns around and says, God is no one. That is a mouthful. And whether he stands at the judgment seat of Christ, can you imagine Jesus Christ looking at him in the eyes, if he's saved, looking at him and say, no one? How about when we look at your rewards, we say, none. Or no, not one. Can somebody be saved and say, God is no one? What is that teaching? It is a worldly teaching of evolution, because where did it all come from? No one. Nothing. Nada. Bingo. You don't need the rest of the book, but we're going to do the book and finish the book. But when somebody says God is no one, I have been in 2 hospitals with both my wives. You cannot tell me that God is no one. When one went peacefully off to be with him, and one that is sitting by my side right now, that the doctor said that ought to be in a wheelchair, is walking about, mercy and grace that he's shown this family, and you're going to tell me that God is no one? Right there is the end for me for faith promise giving. Because if I faith promise give, I'm giving it to no one. Read it. Get the book. I'll give you the address. I'll give you the email. Get the book. This guy says when you faith promise, you give it to no one. Then where's the money go? No one. They go to Catholic purgatory. I don't know. The statement is deceitful. Telling God is no one, yeah, that's deceitful. Even Satan and his devils, and James said that they tremble at God. Even the devils in the book of Acts said, Jesus I know, Paul I know. This guy says, no one. This guy doesn't even profess what Satan professes. The statement is deceitful in that it first tells you that no one will come asking you to fulfill your promise. No one means no one. Not man. Goes my credit. All right. Not angels. You mean I'm not going to get that piece of toast in the morning and an angel's face is going to be on there and the butter's going to spell out, pay your faith promise. I'm not going to drive down the road and that statue that's on the car there that doesn't protect you, Christopher there, who's found in the junkyard. You're not going to be driving down the road. He's going to turn to you and say, hey, you owe money. You just went through that red light. You're going to owe another money with that red and blue lights behind you. Christopher's a moron. He ended up in the junkyards in many different cars. Imagine Christopher talking to Christopher in the junkyard. Hey, I didn't do a good job, did I? Okay. Not man, not angels. Ready? Not God. Are you going to be foolish enough that God is not going to be held accountable for what you say? Did you need to read this verse? I'm trying to remember. It's in Matthew. It's in there. I think 14. It said, by every word you shall be judged. You know how many Christians are going to stand before the judgment seat of Christ? I mean, saved, born-again Christians. And Jesus Christ is going to turn to them in this day and age, 2013, to love, honor, obey, sickness, and all that. And what'd you do? The pastor of the church on such and such date said, who will promise to read their Bible through a year this year? And your hand went up. But when you make a faith promise, if you give God an excuse, which I don't believe God will take any excuses, no one means no one. Not man, not angels, not God. But then it tells you that if you do not fulfill your promise, you can tell God why. If he accepts your excuse, you are free. That is a pure deceit. You know what you're doing? You're putting God in a box. God, I demand you give me $10 for this $10 monthly thing that I pledged myself, promised myself to. And God's sitting up in heaven to Michael, that piece of dust just say, I owe him $10? Yeah, God. Why don't you give him an IOU? That piece of dust down there said, I owe him $10 for a debt that he just put himself in. Right, Gabriel? That's what he said, Lord. And if I don't give him the money, he's going to come to me and give me the excuse. Yeah. But I'm a no one. That's what he said. Does that sound stupid? I'm stepping out of the book now. I'm closing the book for this statement. And you let your preacher talk you into this mess? If the guy that found this mess is deceitful and double talk, what do you think a man behind a pulpit has to be to sell you on this garbage? I'm disgusted enough that God is called a no one. That I can open up my big fat mouth and say, God, I'm going to do something when you do it to me. And then, what if God did give you the $10 every month? Let's say if he gave you $10, you can turn around and say, well, Lord, I don't want to give it because I can use it for my lottery tickets. And God's going to say, okay, you're free. Are you really that stupid? Do you think God would buy this stuff? Listen, as much as I'm in the Word of God, as much as I study the Word of God, I fell into this. For 365 days, I promised to give $5 or $10 every month. Then I got a hold of this book and this study, and I'll tell you right now, I fulfilled my obligation. And when it came that year around, that was it. Now, I took the money that I promised the Lord, I returned it to a missionary that is doing something for the Lord, first of all. But it's not a faith promise. Things are going to change next month in this household, and I may have to reduce some of my giving to missionaries. But I didn't promise God I set amount. Because I don't know what's going to happen. It sounds good. But when you get to the root of the matter, you are asking God that you are telling God you're going to give somebody something that you don't have, and you want God to give it to you because you ain't got it. And when you don't have it, you're going to turn to God, the one that you said it to, and give him an excuse, and he's going to write you off. So you want me to go to Galatians 6:7, be not deceived, God is not mocked, whatsoever man soweth, that he shall also. You just want me to erase that out of there. Well, I want you to do me a favor. We'll get back to this book in a minute. I want you, tomorrow morning, I want you to go down to the local bank. I want you to go down to the local car place. I want you to go somewhere where you can get a loan or a mortgage. I want you to sit there, and this is what I want you to do. All right, Mr. Banker, Mr. Loan Guy, I want to get a loan. I ain't got the money, but I need a loan. I can make payments $500 a month. Does that sound good? Does sound all right. But you're going to give me the $500 to make the payments. Every month you're going to give me $500, and I'll give you $500 to pay for the payment that I'm going to get. Does that sound far-fetched? But you go up to God and say, God, I'll give you $10. I ain't got the $10, so you give me the $10 and give you back the $10. Wait a minute. And then you turn around and you base this whole thing upon, let's do this for real now. Ready? Hi, no one. I'm going to give you $10 I don't have, but no one, you give me $10. When you give me the $10, I'll give the $10 to no one. I don't even know if I'm going to go on to the next lesson. I think we should just end it right there. We're going to. We're going to end it right there. We're going to leave this study, and I'm going to title this one, No One. We're going to end this study calling, not me, oh please, Lord God. With this study, we're going to end it with leaving God as no one. That you're going to go down to the bank tomorrow and tell that bank guy that you're going to pay $500 toward a mortgage, that the bank guy is to give you $500 for you to pay the $500 to him for the mortgage. That's stupid. That's very stupid. And to turn around and say, God, I don't have the money. You did not give me the money that I promised. Imagine that. God not giving me the money that I promised. And you ruin your integrity. So if you can make an excuse for no one, who are the people giving the money to that are giving the money? And let me just say one more thing before we're done. The church gathers everybody's card and they add them all up. And just for the sake of even numbers, let's say $1,000 was promised for faith promise in the church. They counted up $1,000 every month has been promised. All right. The church takes $1,000 of what the people promised out of the offerings and puts it into where they're going to say the faith promise goes. But when you promised God you were going to give, say, $100 a month equals even money. You went to God and said, God, I crossed my fingers behind my back when I promised to give you $100. Because God, you're not faithful enough to give me the $100 to promise you to give you the $100. So God, this is my excuse. You're not faithful to give me the $100. So I'm not going to give the $100. Your church takes $1,000 out of the offering for the faith promise thing, but you haven't given your $100 promise to the church. So people are paying your $100 promise that you asked God about your promise, that you couldn't do the promise. So they're taking your $100 from the offerings to pay for the promise that you said you were going to give. You just robbed from Peter to pay for Paul, had your church do it. And not only, what if not just you, what if other people in the church went to God with their excuses? Let's say 5 people that told God through a promise of $100 a month, 5 people said a promise, $500 went to God and said, Lord, the promise I gave to you, I can't give. This is my excuse. Sorry. Thou forgiven. The church takes $1,000, which is really $500 now, and puts it to the faith promise thing. And you don't see nothing wrong with that? What if people who made a promise left the church? What if the people that made a promise died? What if the people that made a promise forgot? They don't remind you. Yeah, we're going to leave it off. No one. God is to forgive you just by coming up with an excuse. Let's try this on for him. No, not even bother. We'll just leave it with no one.